Welcome to Vinted with Scout Driscoll. Come along with me on my journey into the wine world, where I share thoughtful conversations with wine industry leaders. Get ready for marketing insights from branding and design to sales and social media, and the answer to the ultimate question: what moves wine? Hi everyone, I'm Scout Driscoll, founder of Vint Studio and host of Vinted, where I ask top leaders in the wine industry, how do you move wine? This episode is brought to you by Vint Wine Branding and Design, where rich storytelling meets smart design. At Vint, our studio goes beyond the label, guiding wine brands through strategy-rich branding and packaging evolutions. Our work with Cooper's Hawk has helped them grow the nation's largest wine club to over 450,000 wine club members. What makes Vint unique is our complete lack of ego, our all-woman team, and our 20 years experience building consumer brands across industries. You can learn more about Vint at vint.studio. And for a free label audit for your brand, you can email us at hello@vint.studio. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, Amanda Wurzbach, Vint's dedicated brand strategist. Amanda's work with strategy, voice, and positioning is such a critical component of nearly all of our branding projects here at Vint. Her work spans 25 years honing brands from coast to coast and across industries. And in addition to her work with Vint, Amanda is the CEO and founder of Total Dish Branding and Messaging, her independent brand consultancy. Amanda, welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Honestly, I feel like the thought of just talking to you for an hour is just a gift. We never get to do this. We're always managing the chaos.
That's right. That's right. So as I mentioned in her introduction, Amanda and I have worked together for over a decade. Really not one branding project comes through the studio where we don't have Amanda collaborate with us on helping our clients hone their brand voice, understand what makes them unique and different, and give them a process to really get all their stakeholders on board. I don't really think I can provide a better endorsement for your services, Amanda, than the fact that we've collaborated together for so long.
But why don't you tell doing my PR for sure.
So why don't you tell our listeners kind of how we work together and what is your step in the process that is branding a Vint?
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm so thrilled to be here. And like I said, it's just a total treat to get to chat with you for an hour. But, we talk all the time about what we sell, and we think that that is personality rich design. And sometimes I like to see myself as the leader in the personality department. And every brand has a brand personality, but not every brand is in touch with their brand personality. And figuring out what you need to say is just so critical before we can figure out what we want to show. One of my favorite things that you always say, even though I'm a writer by trade, is that people read design faster than they read words. But that design has to communicate something really compelling or interesting or romantic or something that sweeps the customer off their feet. So I really start with our clients, sitting down with them and understanding what they're about, what drives them, what is their favorite day at work, what makes them get out of bed in the morning, why were they inspired to start this business? Everyone, the answer is there, but they don't even know it. And I think that too often, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later a little bit or delve in deeper, but too often clients focus on differentiation and say, well, we're different, so that's what our brand is. And different isn't better. All the airlines take you to the same city from the same city at the same amount of time. So or every, ibuprofen brand relieves the pain. So somebody can copy you in a minute. And it really is so critical that your brand personality is what sets you apart rather than your differentiation.
Totally. And you often hone that personality or anchor it around an emotion, yes. Core emotion. And I think that's so different in how we really reflect on branding. I really love too how recently in our branding projects together, you've begun really making people understand the difference between a product statement and a brand statement. And I think that gets into what you were just saying about what you do can be replicated. For example, we worked with a coal fire oven pizza place back in the day. And they're like, it's all about our coal fire oven. And we're like, no, anyone can buy a coal fired oven. What is it that makes your brand unique and different, and how people connect emotionally with your brand? So what is the difference, for wineries as they think about, kind of their brand statement? What is the difference between a product statement and a brand statement? Product statements are often like, we're from the Red Mountain AVA, or we produce, high quality, world-class Napa Cabernet. But
Right.
how do we differentiate those two?
I think that it really comes down to ideas. And I think that, since the beginning of time, Mr. Levi's had a great product idea for a new kind of pant that wouldn't rip when gold miners were mining for gold.
Is that seriously the Levi's story?
I think it is. I really am pulling this out of my back pocket. So
we're going to say that officially, that's
I believe that's true. But that said, Levi's today really sells an idea of Americana. And there's this hardworking and this your dreams can come true. And all of that was probably present in that original nucleus of a company. But it's something that is so meaningful that they can sell it decade after decade in different interesting ways that are reflective of the times, but it's really an emotional idea rather than here is our denim. And I think we all know Levi's is not the only denim brand anymore. There's a lot of competition. So, again, that idea of Americana is the brand idea versus the product idea, which is just the product. But that's a hard place for business owners' brains to go. They are innovators, they're visionaries, they have a new idea. And they don't think about how that idea makes their customer feel all the time. And that's where you and I come in and really help thread that needle that is so desperately needs to be thread. Now I need to stop talking about like apparel and textile.
I think for wineries, and that's what I like is your experience is so diverse across industries. And quite frankly, that's what makes Vint so special too, is that, Vint is our wine division, but Vint is part of Design Scout, which is a 20-year-old studio that focuses on consumer brands across industries, primarily food and beverage. But we also are developing a new identity for the nation's largest promotional product company right now. So we really bring insights from all these other industries. So it's okay to talk about Levi's because it's something that we all experience. I think when it comes to wineries, the buzzword that people anticipate or think about when they think of branding is lifestyle. And even that gets so, worn out. But it is an easy way to say emotion. It's an easy way to convey more substance that people can connect with on a personal level versus the product that they're drinking or that you're selling. So I think when it comes to wineries, like thinking about your target audience and what is a lifestyle that you're hoping to fit into, how do you serve and solve their problems that fit into their life? So I think that part of that emotion through line is really serving that lifestyle concept.
Yeah. And I think that lifestyle is such a wobbly or soft concept. Lifestyle can mean something so different to me than it does to you because we live different lifestyles. And, one time I was talking to a client who said, it's all about luxury, right? Yeah. Well, the luxury to me is an afternoon at the peninsula. And that's not even how my mom defines luxury or my husband defines luxury. Yeah. Everyone sees that differently. So you really need to double click on those high level ideas and understand, again, like this whole process that I developed and then we refined together was all based on let's really dig into what these words mean. Because saying that this is a friendly brand or saying that this is a lifestyle brand is not enough because 10 different people are going to define that 10 different ways.
Absolutely. And I think so many wineries shroud their brand in luxury and price points, higher price points, because that's kind of the cost of entry at these higher price point bottles. If you have $100 or higher bottle of wine, you have to make it appear luxurious, but there's so much opportunity for differentiating that and getting deeper, and building out that lifestyle. And I'm going to say it also, that lifestyle is not blogger girls on Instagram. I feel like so many wineries, if they do get lifestyle or the concept of being a lifestyle brand right, they don't really go far enough in developing that differentiated brand compass that we do. And they just kind of lean hard into here's pretty white women wearing blogger hats, frolicking in a vineyard. And yeah, that's attractive, but I think that can be so A, whitewashed, and B, it's just not differentiated. We see it all the time. And the same quote unquote lifestyle that Instagram is following at this moment for wineries is literally the same thing you're going to see for 1,000 other types of products. So I really love that we help clients get to that true, unique, and evergreen brand story through the brand compass process, where it's not just following trends. It's not just having beautiful people drinking your wine. It's really giving you years of content strategy based on your own unique brand DNA.
And the thing is that the reason why it is evergreen is because, and we pride ourselves on this, is that we're not going to engineer anything for you. This isn't something that we're going to say, this is cool, so this is who you are. It really is in the stakeholders' DNA. This is why they get out of bed in the morning. And this is what makes them interested in what they do and drives them to succeed. It's just, you get so close, like think about writing your own resume or writing your own dating profile. Like you say, what? I don't know what I'm about. I forget. And you need 10 friends to help you. It's no different. We're friends for hire in this particular area, because people need help cherry picking what are those truly provocative, interesting, compelling moments within the brand experience that set you apart.
Yeah.
And they exist. They're already there. You just, you don't know how interesting they are yet.
Totally. And so our process that you developed, Amanda, to help clients kind of sort through all of the possibilities and really filter through like what that final result of their brand is the brand compass. Would you like to kind of walk us through? Because I'm hoping this podcast will really help as many different wineries as possible, even those who can't afford to bring on a brand strategist. So if a winery is just starting out, talk us through the brand compass and how people can kind of develop that process.
Yeah, I think, so I started my career working in restaurants, and it was my job to get a chef and a manager to agree on what kind of restaurant this was. And then in 6 months, they'd hire a new manager, and then we'd all have to have the same conversation all over again. So, and this was, I guess, in the mid-aughts, if you will. So at that point, everyone was talking about brand values. And it was brand values were the new brand mission. Like mission statements are out, values are in. And so I used to say, okay, well, let's just say that there are 4 values for our brand, our company, and what are they? And I would work through that with everyone, and we would all agree on 4 things. And then I really realized through my work with you, especially when I was giving you these 4 values or these ideas, some of them emotional, some of them functional, that you just ended up with a pile of adjectives, and which ones do I choose?
Yeah.
So it's not enough to say this brand is about sophistication or this brand. Those are all important things to say. And we call them the 4 tenants, the north, south, east, and west of your brand. Maybe it's about being dedicated. Maybe it's about being partners with your customer. Maybe it's about the kind of soil that your vines grow in, whatever it might be. Those are all really important, but you can't say 4 things at once. And so together, you and I came up with this idea of a North Star, which is, what is this one emotion that we can always, it's the lens through which we tell this story. And it does need to be emotional. So if it's about American independence, if it's about romance, if it's about what else, Americana, etc.
Counterculture.
All of these, right? Counterculture. That's a great example. Sounds familiar. Any of these options really help you sort of tie together the feeling that you're trying to share with your customer.
Yeah. And so the tenants are kind of the hows and whys of the brand, but the North Star is really that core emotion or the spirit of the brand.
Spirit is the perfect way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. That's what you told me.
Well, thanks for reminding me.
Thanks, Amanda. So the brand compass is a great start. I've spoke about in other episodes of the podcast, the brand key process. And that's a really great kind of DIY version of a little bit of what we do in studio. So I'll be elucidating on that in future episodes as well. But, the brand compass is just really critical to helping help you make choices for your brand, understanding how and when something is the right thing for your brand to do. If your brand compass is all about authenticity, it means that you're not going to post on Instagram for National Pizza Day, because has nothing to do with your brand unless you're a pizza company. So really helps you make choices for your brand across the board. So, and as a designer, our work our work with the brand strategy allows us to use that filter to decide our designs. And, everyone reads design, but we speak design. And what we're saying through our design is so critically based on your brand strategy, Amanda, that allows us to convey and push and pull the dial so that everything that we present a client for, say, a wine label is all very much on brand. But it is like at that point in the design, we've already decided, who we are, how we make people feel. We've gotten all the stakeholders aligned. So everyone who's a decision maker has all agreed on this compass. So when we say, no, this is really about originality. And I know, Jim, you want concept A that feels a little more traditional, but because your brand compass having that core tenet of originality, we're going to keep pushing you to go a little bit further out of your comfort level and go with, the hot pink. I'm holding up our new rebrand for Soleil Mimosa, which is absolutely original. It's a bottle of mimosa that is just filled with color, and the packaging is incredibly vibrant on the shelf.
Flashy.
Very splashy. And I'll put photos on the website for those of you who are just listening. But, I love our compass so much in that it helps us make those design choices and it helps us defend our choices. So when we have stakeholders in different ways, it also helps our clients share the overall brand strategy with their social media people, with their tasting room staff, as they're writing for, any content creation. So much of that compass applies to things beyond design. And it's so important. One thing that time after time, clients come to us asking for a project, and only for me to turn them around and say, you're respectfully, based on what you're requesting, I really think that you need to do some brand strategy, because what they're telling me is either generic or it's emulating someone else, or it's just not far enough, or maybe they have a brand from 20 years ago and it's time to evolve. So I'd love to talk, Amanda, with you about some of the red flags that wineries should look for that might be signs that their brand needs work. Like, what are the things that trigger to them, like, oh, maybe we don't have our brand on lock as much as we think we do, or maybe we're focused just on that product statement versus the brand statement. So what are your red flags for wineries to look for that they need brand help?
I mean, I think that the biggest red flag of all is if you walk around your office or your wherever
room.
It may be, wherever your tasting room, exactly. Thank you. And ask 10 people what this brand is about, what this makes them think of. If you don't get at least 9 of the exact same answers, you need to do some creative strategy or some messaging work. And I do recognize that, and this is going to veer off slightly, there's so many areas of branding that it can feel overwhelming and but we have a website and we have a logo, so we're done. And really getting to the core of that storytelling and what it is, especially in, a place like Napa, where, every few feet down the road, there's another winery doing something else really interesting. And so that storytelling or that romance, or how you romance your customers or align with them and make them feel, those are the things that they'll never forget. So if you ask 10 people in the room, how do we make you feel? Why do you drink this? Why are we in business? Why are we doing this? And don't get very similar answers, then you have a branding challenge. I would say that's probably the biggest red flag of all. The other one that I think you and I always look at each other across the room and say, oh, here we go.
That never happens.
No, the client says, we just want something that looks cool.
Yeah.
That is a huge red flag, because again, back to, let's bring that conversation around to it. What looks cool to 10 different people is different. So it needs to have this distinct story, and that keeps us all on the same page. And then, so much of what we do is we're selling our ideas, we're selling our creativity. And there's nothing worse than when there's someone in the room who says, I love it, I just hate the color pink. When pink, let's get away from these sort of functional conversations about our brand and talk about how it's supposed to make the customer feel. Because if the brand is all about sweetness and joy, like one of the donut concepts we recently did, which was all about the magic of sugar, pink is exactly right. And going in a different direction actually will not communicate that sweetness to the user. So
exactly.
What about you? What are the red flags for you?
Oh, there's so many. I find for clients, often when they're kind of lost and they don't know what to say next, or they're struggling with their content creation, like if they're just starting to kind of follow along trends, National Pizza Month, et cetera, that's a great flag that you need to take a look at your brand strategy and develop more of that brand story. A great brand compass and a great brand strategy will help you make those decisions moving forward. So I think whenever clients feel lost or don't know what to say next, it's really important to kind of lean on strategy. The other thing too is when your voice is really inconsistent. So if you have your social media company, and a lot of wineries kind of partner with social media companies to help manage their social, because they're also farmers and they're also winemakers and they're also doing sales in the tasting room. But so if your social media voice is dramatically different or off message from what's happening in your tasting room, off message from what's happening on the back label of your label, that's a really good flag, that you are struggling with your brand strategy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're
really is, and brand strategy sounds so important, or it's so big or hard to grasp, but it's really just about what is the story that you're telling? Like it's brand storytelling more than anything. What is the story that we can base everything, that we can align all of our messaging out to the public through? Yeah. I started my career in public relations working with chefs, and everyone wanted to be in the cover of Bon Appetit because their food was good. And their food was good and their atmosphere was super. And the service was affable and good. But that just isn't enough. It isn't enough to say this is a delicious glass of wine or this is a beautiful tasting room. There just needs to be something more, something that I can align myself with as a customer that makes me come back again and again. I talk about that quote by Maya Angelou all the time about I'm going to paraphrase here very loosely, that people will forget what you said and forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I've recognized that Maya was not talking about branding, but she kind of was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think too, another red flag is when people just follow trends. And I think it's a scary place to stand out in the wine world, especially if you were from a very well-renowned AVA, especially if you're working in a very specific varietal of wine. There's a way that Napa Cabernets tend to look. There are traditions in wine design. And so we never want to, just divorce ourselves from those traditions. But I really worry that people are really following trends when it comes to wine label design and packaging specifically, and even social media. I think there's a lot of accounts where you really don't know which account you're looking at. So that kind of generification of brand is something that I think is rampant in the wine industry. And so that's also a flag. And, thinking of, if you think your brand is your wine label, you have bigger problems.
That is your branding.
Yes, but so many people have a really hard time understanding how a brand goes beyond packaging. And, our work with you and your strategy really allows people to see that the little canvas, the little 4x6 inch sticky paper just blow up, because all of a sudden their brand is about that conversation in the tasting room. It's about, the Facebook Live, the way that they connect with a certain person. It's about, recipes they're recommending, or travel opportunities, or the apparel that people wear. I was just at a winery out in New York, and I loved it. It was amazing. It was called Croteau. It's all rosé, and the staff was just wearing the most beautiful uniforms, and they're all like long drapey linen skirts and denim shirts, and that's brand. So watching your brand goes so far beyond just what's happening on your label. I know it's a little different for wineries that are, primarily, either direct to consumer, like in their tasting room, or through their own wine club, or versus wineries that are really primarily retail only or private label. But just thinking of your brand as just the label, I think is a great red flag for why it's time to focus on your new brand and growing your brand.
Yeah, for sure.
So listeners might not know, but our parent studio, Design Scout, is really truly a restaurant branding and design studio for the last 20 years. And one of my favorite branding projects that Amanda and I have collaborated on together is for a falafel and shawarma shop here in Chicago. I'd love to share how we put, your branding process to work, Amanda, with the Chicago-based shop. And can you walk us through a little bit of like how our process helped completely change this 10-year-old falafel and shawarma shop?
Absolutely. I mean, it was just one of my favorite projects ever.
Yeah.
It really was, because it was so much fun to, again, this is what I love about this story, is that it's the perfect example of all of that spirit, all of that brand spirit that we brought to life existed. It's just, it existed in ownership's personalities naturally. And I don't think that they could see how to turn it into an experience that you could walk into.
Yeah.
So we met Benji and Stacy. They had 5 locations in downtown Chicago of a restaurant called Benjyehuda. They sell falafel and shawarma, and it was amazing. So delicious, so fresh. But really their brand was a blank canvas. They showed Animal House. Wait, is that what the movie's called?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. My parents let me see that when I was young. They showed live concerts on TV. It always was kind of like bawdy and fun. There was a little bit, I don't know, there was always a fun vibe in the restaurant, but that was it. It was what was on the TV and what they were serving behind the counter. And after, they came to us saying, how are we going to grow? We're really open. We understand that our name is hard to pronounce. We said, indeed it is. We're not sure.
Did we say the name yet? I can't remember. So the name is Benjyehuda, which was, if anyone is familiar with travel in Israel, Benjyehuda is the name of a street in many, many major cities in Israel. It's kind of like the MLK in America. And so Benjyehuda Street is what Benji and Stacy named the restaurant after, but they thought it'd be funny if they called it Benjyehuda. So it really is a name that is based on, it's a funny pun on a very obscure reference in Hebrew.
Obscure,
so
but also a very personal experience that they had that meant a lot to them. And I think that that's such a great segue into the branding that we did, because the more we got to know Benji and Stacy, the more we realized how hard they had fought for the life that they had built together, and that, they took on every struggle or every challenge with a lot of hard work and a lot of humor. And that really was what was sort of the glue that held their brand together.
Yeah.
And I know that they hired us to do a brand strategy and then a redesign, but we're completely open to being renamed, which I think I submitted an invoice. I was like, yes, we're going to rename this. And then once we just figured out what that North Star was, which was all about counterculture, it was very anti-establishment, that hard work and that humor, and that, it doesn't matter what life throws in our way, we're going to do things our own way kind of tone that they just lived. They didn't even know that was particularly interesting. It was just their personalities.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, there's no bigger, I say this with respect, middle finger to society, which is, I have a brand that you can barely spell, you can't pronounce, and you're going to love it because the food is delicious.
Yeah.
So I came back, I withdrew that invoice, said, I cannot rename this. This is perfect. Let's build on this. And that was what their North Star was, is all about the counterculture. And of course, that is an amazing pun considering they were serving food, quick service food over a counter.
Yeah. And when when you begin to consider their competitive set, which was a lot of fast casuals, or very polished, very corporate. These guys are in the Loop in Chicago, surrounded by traders and offices and businesses. And, when you think of the competitive set being so straight-laced or so ethnic, roti, naf, et cetera, this allowed us to completely differentiate the brand, but in a way that was so distinctive and authentic to the ownership. Like when we told Benji and Stacy, this is a counterculture brand, this is an Anthony Bourdain brand, this is a little bit of maintaining your raw edginess in the Loop and your restaurants, where people can come and be themselves for a half hour after a busy corporate workday. Their eyes just lit up, and all of a sudden those blank walls in the restaurants. And even one of the restaurants is, I'll never forget, Benji was like, this is our restaurant. And it was the only spot available on the block, but we took it. And the whole ceiling was covered with black ducks covered in not garbage bag, with black plastic. And it's almost like a basement space. And I was like, I don't know what we're going to do with this when we rebrand these guys. This space needs a lot of help. But you know what? When your brand is based on counterculture, it's okay if it looks like an underground rock venue. And we made it work. And, so we took that new identity and completely rebranded their full art pack, all of their messaging. We gave them this really robust counterculture aesthetic with wheat paste posters and cool portraits of their, drag queen employees, and like just really lean into it pretty hard. And we were able to completely transform this 10-year-old restaurant that for a decade, they had a line around the block.
Yeah.
They had people lining up for their food, but they had blank walls and they had no story that they were telling through their brand. And after Amanda's strategy and our update of their packaging, their store designs, their online presence and social media, Amanda and I's worked together on that project. And of course, my whole team, were able to increase their sales by 40%. So by having a focused brand strategy that is authentic to you, it's such a great case study because they were successful. They did have people who love their food. They had devout fans of their food, and we were still able to give them a brand that served them and increase their sales by such a high amount. On average, most restaurants on average year over year during good economies, of course, COVID has changed this, but 5 to 7% increase in revenue is kind of average for restaurants. So for them to increase by 40% is huge, business changing. So I think, it comes to wineries, thinking of like, what are you leaving on the table by having a brand that's undifferentiated, that's unemotional, that doesn't provide the lifestyle experience that people are expecting today, and one that is, emulating others. You're just, all I see is that 40% revenue that everyone else could be garnering. Right. That is not a warranty. By the way, we do not guarantee 40% sales increases, but it's just such a great example of how that brand strategy and serving you can help you really build your business and grow.
Absolutely. And what I love about it, and we talked about it earlier, that we'll never engineer anything for you, is that because it was so organic to who they were already, it's become so easy for you to deliver on that brand. Yeah. We're never going to give you something that you don't feel comfortable standing in. This is an extension of you and your heart and your soul. And there's just no other industry that has more heart and soul and hard work in it than the wine industry. But you're also in a space where people walk through the lines. We're based in Chicago, so they walk through the aisles at Binny's, and we know that people buy bottles based on what it looks like, what the label looks like. It can't just be trendy, though. It needs to tell an authentic story for it to really impact your sales and really impact your business.
I agree. And that authenticity is so important as people are looking to connect with younger audiences. There's a study that interviewed millennials, and 90% of millennials crave an authentic brand. The era of being too aloof or too exclusive for people to participate in is so different. And thinking of how, especially in Napa Valley, how things are changing, wineries are really beginning to, the ones that are really successful are beginning to focus on younger people who can come have an experience, because people don't care about, the fact that they're having a wine tasting or that they're in wine country. Older Gen X people do, but people who are younger care about the fact that they can share. Yeah, that's us. No. But millennials, they want to show it. They want to do it with their friends. They want to experience it. It has to be an experienceable moment. And so, as you think about brand and lifestyle, and bringing that brand compass to life, think about, the picture frames at Raymond Vineyard that all of the people are, taking those selfies on Instagram and sharing the story and that experience of them with their friends at Raymond Vineyard. Think about ways that you can provide, those. I think having Instagrammable moments are critical at your winery, but how do you do them in a way that is recognizable as yours and that is truly authentic to your brand strategy? The reason why some of the Boisset properties do so well is because they're very truly John Charles Boisset style. For those of you who don't know him, he is a Napa celebrity winemaker, winery owner, who is incredibly flamboyant. I mean, he just walks in the room in his full red velvet suit and he's lounging on his leopard print, cheese lounge. And he is just 1,000% John Charles. So that is a brand all about his personality and fashion and opulence and French. It's almost like, he's kind of like a walking palace of Versailles. So, but that's authentic to their brand. And they've provided all these Instagrammable moments that allow you to connect and share that experience with your brand. So
have a point of view. You already have one. Just use it to launch yourself into a richer story that you tell. But everybody, again, that point of view is already literally in the roots pardon the pun, of your wine brand. And we can help you extract it, but it's already there. And I think with some like for wine businesses that are just wineries that are just starting, like really taking some time to think about how do you feel when you drink your wine, and how do you want people to feel when you drink your wine is a great question to ask yourself to start it.
Well,
Or what do people tell you about your personality? Why do people love hanging out with you? Like that is what your personal brand is, right? Scout, you and I have both done our brands for our own companies.
Yeah.
And my North Star is all about being vivid, because I'm going to help you bring color to your brand, but also I have this big, huge personality
No.
that is apparent the moment you meet me.
just a little bit. Also, for those of you who aren't on video, or it's kind of hard to tell because we're sitting down, Amanda and I walk into meetings and we're the most comic duo because I'm 5'4" and Amanda is not.
10.
Amanda's 5'10" and blonde, and I'm 5'4" and brunette, and we just make a very
we are our own diverse demographic.
We are. So Amanda, to wrap it up, given that Vinted is all about helping people move wine, I always like to ask, what is your number one advice for how to move wine? What do you think wineries are doing? How do we stop them from leaving that 40% revenue on the table?
This is going to sound a little broken record because I feel like we've been talking about this the whole time, but it's that point of view. What is that? It's again, how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a clear idea of what that is, then it's time to do some soul searching, because you're like, I always say, it's not about getting customers. Because let's say people will say, you can only have 5% of the market. That's yours. That's your piece of the pie. I want you to have 100% of your perfect customer. And they will find you if you have this personality rich message that really, that is emotive. So you think about the great brands in American history. Harley, been around 100 years. We talked about Levi's earlier. We talk about Harley Davidson all the time because they have been in business for more than 100 years. They have the most dedicated following. It is an incredibly diverse demographic. People save up for years to buy their perfect custom bike because they're buying a piece of freedom. They're buying independence. We often talk about Ralph Lauren and how they've been able to have so many different brands under that one Ralph Lauren umbrella, because it's all about telling different stories from different periods of American history. All of these ideas are bigger than the product. You're not buying a shirt. You're not buying a motorcycle. You are buying an idea. So what is that idea that you're selling? And once you understand that, you can really put together not just a strong visual experience, but a strong, actual experience that you can walk into that goes beyond just the bottle.
I love that. So we've been talking to Amanda Wurzbach today, who is the founder and CEO of Total Dish Branding and Marketing, as well as our dedicated brand strategist here at Vint. So beside contacting us at Vint to work with you, Amanda, how else can people learn more about you and Total Dish?
Oh my goodness. They can go to totaldishmarketing.com and they can find me that way. But I would really rather everyone find me through you, because because working with you is my life's joy, other than my family and my perfect little Chihuahua Jack Russell named Lola. You are my North Star, Scout Driscoll.
Well, Amanda, as we've often said, you're my total ride or die. So thank you for listening, everyone, today. We're so excited that you've joined us for the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode of Vinted.
Look forward.
Tune in for the next Vinted. Subscribe today. For future episodes, marketing advice, and more, follow me on Instagram at Scout Driscoll. Learn more about Vint's design and branding services for wineries at www.vint.studio.